Thank you, President Larson. I knew her as glow cords. Good morning, everyone. To the faculty and staff, parents and family, and of course, to the 900 proud graduates, I'm really honored to be a small part of this day. I never attended my own university commencements, even though I have 2 degrees. Both times I moved and started working immediately after my last class, and I was too in debt to travel back to pick up my diplomas. So I thank you for allowing me the fantasy that I am 21 or 28 again, out of debt, and getting a Doctor of Commercial Science degree with you today. Today I'm 58, and I have no idea how 30 years flew by. Time seems to go by faster as you get older. Time is, in fact, the single most cherished resource that people have or don't have these days. If you give employees a choice of an extra week's pay or an extra week off, they will pick more time overwhelmingly. We waste a lot of precious time. The average American woman spends 55 minutes a day just looking for things. At Time Inc., we launched a red-hot magazine over that simple, single consumer insight. If we can get our readers organized, they can reclaim some of that hour. That's an unbeatable brand promise. As you leave here today, don't be intimidated by a tough job market as you search for your place in the world. I recommend doing what I did. Follow your passion. I've told this story many times. It's true. I had a dozen offers when I graduated from Harvard Business School in the late 70s. I took the lowest offer on the table. It was from Time Incorporated, and I took it because I loved magazines. People thought I was crazy. But I became the president of People, and now the chairman and CEO of all of Time Inc. And I didn't look so crazy at my 25th reunion. So lesson number 1, forget the clock. Get yourself a compass instead, because the direction you are headed is far more important than how fast you're going. One big reason not to be in such a hurry is that you might miss the fun of the journey. In 30 years, I've been to most of the Olympics since Lake Placid. I always sit on the 50-yard line at the Super Bowl. I threw out the first pitch at Shea Stadium at a Mets game, not just once, but 3 times. Now, this always impresses men in particular, and I'm not sure why. It's not very hard to do. I've been to the Oscars, the Grammys, and the World Series. I've rung the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. I've rung the closing bell. I've been around the world many times, once in 5 months, just last year in 11 days. I don't recommend the latter. It's brutal on your health. I've had dinner with President Hu at the Great Hall in Beijing, with the President of the United States in the White House, and with Harry Potter at Hogwarts. I've met every living heavyweight champion. Do not allow your children into the ring, period. I've met movie stars, politicians, musicians, scientists, and CEOs. But the biggest thrill for me is still Sunday night dinners at my house. I cook. My 24-year-old son brings home all his 24-year-old friends for one good meal because their paychecks barely cover their New York rents. My husband and I both live for Sunday night dinners. One of the most amazing weekends I ever spent was in 1996, raising money for cancer research in Chicago with Diana, the Princess of Wales. It was just before the divorce, so she was still part of the royal family. At the last of 3 events, a luncheon at the Drake Hotel, I handed her off to the publisher of InStyle, who said, "Your Royal Highness, you must be looking forward to getting on the plane home after lunch." And the very beautiful, hardworking princess said, "Not really, because tomorrow I'll be back in the palace all alone." So much for childhood dreams of being a fairy princess. Every frazzled working woman at that table, including Katie Couric, was speechless for a minute. None of us ever forgot it. Lesson number 2, whatever career path you take, whatever choices you make, try to go home to Sunday dinners, not to an empty palace. There's certainly nothing wrong with money, but the richness of your life won't be measured by it. This assignment today got me thinking of the remarkable cast of characters I've met in my career and what I've taken away from each of them. I was very lucky, late in my career, to be adopted by a mentor. It was one day in my 50s, this wise, inspiring, irreverent force of nature with perfect comedic timing and this silver kind of helmet head of hair showed up on my sofa. Governor Ann Richards from the great state of Texas announced she was here because she read I was the first female CEO of Time Inc., and she had come to teach me how to play at the varsity level. Ann had moved to New York City right after 9/11. That was just like her, to barge in as others were fleeing. Ann Richards believed gender is an issue for politicians, for CEOs. No day passed in her lifetime, she once told me, when she wasn't keenly aware that she was a female. There was no day without a "you Tarzan, me Jane" moment. But she rejoiced in the differences. She was fearless and taught me to be unafraid. She gave me courage and permission to laugh out loud, to ignore the anonymous bloggers. And up until the day she died 2 years ago of cancer, she taught me the power of gratitude. Researchers have proven the virtue of gratitude. Feelings of thankfulness help people cope with daily problems, especially stress. Gratitude will give you energy, optimism, lower blood pressure, fewer colds, and less depression. Try it. I recommend it highly. Lesson number 3, pray you're lucky enough to get a mentor in your career, and make sure you mentor someone in return. I'd like to give a wave to Imelda Mwanja from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania today. Imelda's somewhere in the audience. She's my mentee, and she's with me on her first American commencement and on her first trip to Boston. The most inspiring person I ever met was Osceola McCarty. Miss McCarty was from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. For most of her 91 years, Miss McCarty took in wash, and she did it by hand. She had to drop out of the 6th grade. She carried water from a hydrant, washed the clothes by hand, boiled them in these big black pots, hung them on the line, and then she ironed. There was a time she charged just 50 cents for a bundle for a week's worth of laundry for a family of 4, although that climbed to $10 by the time she retired when she was 87. Miss McCarty had some money saved up, so she called the University of Southern Mississippi and donated $150,000 for a scholarship fund. The first scholarship went to an honors student, Stephanie Bullock, who had a twin brother, Stephen. Their parents couldn't afford to send both of them to college, so they sent Stephen. Miss McCarty sent Stephanie. After she appeared in People magazine, the White House called her. She came up by train and went on to New York, where I took her to the Police Athletic League luncheon at the Pierre. As I introduced her, women in designer suits started spontaneously passing their raffle tickets to her. She won half of the raffle items that day. Miss McCarty seemed bewildered by the fuss and by the question she heard over and over. Why didn't you spend the money on yourself? I am spending it on myself, was her answer. If Miss McCarty could do all that for the children of Mississippi, what are you and I going to do for the rest of the children on this planet? Miss McCarty reminded me of a life interview with Lady Bird Johnson, who talked about a needlepoint pillow one of her staff gave her that sat on her sofa in the White House office. It said, "To avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing." So lesson number 4, modify your own needlepoint pillow. It should say something, do something, be something. And finally, a couple years ago, I crossed paths with Bono. Yeah, that Bono. The Nobel Peace Prize nominated Irish vocalist for U2. I confess I didn't want to go the night that the editor of Time set up a small dinner with Bono. That would have been a shame, because I don't know when I've ever felt more challenged in discussing poverty, Africa, the environment, world peace, third world debt relief, or AIDS. When Bono talks about what the Pope told him, it actually sounds authentic, not the least bit pretentious. He gets his authenticity from the sheer fact that he's stuck with his activism for so long. The list of problems he wants solved is just breathtaking. When I asked him to narrow it down a bit, what's the one thing he wanted me to work on? Justice. He assigned me to work on justice. And get this, he sent me flowers the next day. Flowers. Manners are the lubricating oil in a society, Peter Drucker used to always say. Bono had the nicest manners of any public person I have ever encountered. He was thoughtful to the most powerful and the least powerful people in the room. So lesson number 5. All the lessons we teach our children apply in the workplace. Say please and thank you. Do your homework. Look both ways. Speak up. Don't shout. Listen to your teacher. I have always gone out of my way to avoid hiring people without manners. I recommend that too. I believe people respect candor and expect fairness. I believe totally in customer focus. I believe in continuous improvement. You know, even the brand leader can't sit back and coast. Somebody will catch you and put you out of business. I believe trust is a powerful tool in helping you lead. And I don't think you can lead change alone. You need a team these days. I believe feedback is essential. Babies learn from repetition. Remember Goodnight Moon? Adults don't do this feedback thing. Adults don't do this repetition thing. Adults learn from feedback. You can't grow without it. I believe it is now completely up to you. By now, most of your character has been molded. You're now responsible for your life and your career all the way to the finish line. No more lectures from mom or dad, the dean, or commencement speakers will make much difference. I've learned in the 30 years since I graduated that making money is easy. Making a difference is hard. And when I'm 85 and in a rocker on my porch, looking back on my file of snapshots, what memories will I cherish most? It, quite frankly, won't be the company planes or shareholder meetings or golf tournaments. My husband Donovan says I'm the only golfer he knows who's had $100,000 worth of lessons and still doesn't keep score. It won't be the famous people or the awards or the ball gowns I've accumulated. It will be the work that my mother's generation of women did so well. I know my own commitment to volunteerism and public service comes from watching my mother. She set the example, and her bar was pretty high. My mother, even today with arthritis, does something kind for a neighbor, the Women's Club of McLean, Virginia, her political party, the local school where her granddaughters now go, or her church. Every single day. She will continue to do so for the rest of her life. I'm very honored to be the chairman and CEO of Time Inc., but I often think of the void that was created when my generation of women, the baby boomers, had choices. We didn't follow in our mother's footsteps as teachers, nurses, and full-time unpaid community volunteers. And that flight of talent to the business world left a big void in our schools, medical care, and nonprofits. The next corporate leaders, you millennials, you need to fill that void. And I suggest you get right to work tomorrow on 2 things that need to change. First, the most wonderful part of the recent election campaign was to witness finally increased participation in the political process. I don't care how people vote. I just never did like the concept of the silent majority. I think majority rule has a better ring to it. Never, ever forget to vote. Second, I'm tired of seeing my young employees and their families forced to move to the suburbs in search of affordable public education. Every problem-solving brainstorm I've ever attended, the Fortune Global Summits, the Aspen Institutes, always comes down to one starting point: restoring the health of public education. A New York Times reporter interviewed my friend Jackie Joyner-Kersee in Barcelona. She was staying with me on the Sports Illustrated ship. Jackie's asthma didn't do well in unair-conditioned athlete dorms. The reporter was speculating that she would be retiring soon. And Jackie said one day, "Well, what will you do?" said the reporter. "I'm going back to East St. Louis to open a community center for kids." "Really?" said the skeptical reporter. "For how long?" "For the rest of my life," said my friend Jackie. "You may well need to commit to public education and closing the dangerous gap between the rich and the poor for the rest of your lives. You need to chase the real long-term solution to peace and prosperity." I saved an editor's note from one of our newest magazines, real simple. It was a rabbi's advice at a wedding ceremony to a new bride and groom. "If you want to be happy for an hour, take a nap," said the rabbi. "If you want to be happy for a day, go fishing. If you want to be happy for a week, go on a honeymoon. If you want to be happy for a year, inherit a fortune. If you want to be happy for a lifetime, help other people." I'm sorry our generation didn't advance civilization further for you, that we've left you way too many same old problems on the table to tackle again. It will be hard and it will be stressful, but you are a competitive bunch. You are some of the most competent and most privileged people in the world. You can do better, and you have to try. Tennis icon Billie Jean King tells the story of the night she played Bobby Riggs. "It was 1973, the night I met my husband, so I'm sure of the date. She thought she had to play an aggressive game at the net since Margaret Court had been beaten by him. But she told me as she was carried out Cleopatra style and faced him on the court, she had a revelation. Oh my God, he's as old as my father. And Bobby had chosen the best of 5 games. I can wear him out, she thought. So with the world watching, she changed her entire game plan on the spot. Intuition? No. Scientific fact, he was old. Billie Jean always says this: champions adapt, and pressure is a privilege. I really do hate to tell you that the pressure and stress you may have felt some days here at Bentley, the balancing act of taking on more than seems possible, never really ends. But you are all champions, and pressure is a privilege. Every single year, Ann Richards would end the Fortune Most Powerful Women Summit by reminding us to keep our sense of humor, to simplify our lives, to give up on perfection, and to take responsibility for our health. The here and now is all we have, and if you play it right, it's all you'll need. So seize the moment, and congratulations to all of you.